On June 23, 2016, residents of the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. So what happens now? Well, to be honest, we don't know. This is absolutely unprecedented. This is as if Texas actually managed to secede from the United States. So far, there have been several immediate effects. First, within hours of the vote, the UK's Prime Minister, David Cameron, announced his resignation.
The British people have made a very clear decision to take a different path. And as such, I think the country requires fresh leadership to take it in this direction.
Cameron supported the push to stay part of the EU, while his likely replacement, Conservative former London Mayor Boris Johnson, pushed to leave, calling Brexit a glorious opportunity. But so far, things have been far from glorious. Since the vote, the British pound has collapsed in value, dropping to levels unseen in the last 30 years and threatening to drop below the dollar, which has apparently never happened before. The euro, too, saw a steep but less severe drop. And when the London Stock Exchange opened on the morning after the vote, the top 100 companies had collectively dropped more than 500 points, the largest fall since the 2008 economic crisis. And despite the dollar rising in response, the Dow Jones Stock Market Index dropped more than 600 points, its worst day in 5 years. Although the stocks have slightly recovered following the initial panic, the future of the UK's economy does not look good. London is the most important financial center in Europe, and financial markets account for 10% of the UK's GDP. But by leaving the EU, the UK will no longer be party to the EU's financial regulations, making it impossible to rely on for financial investment until new regulations are established. Many economists say that this will significantly damage the UK and EU economies. In one scenario proposed by the International Monetary Fund, by 2017, Britain will fall into a recession, and unemployment could hit 7% by the following year, coupled with severe inflation. Although, as a result of the pound being cheaper, trade will likely rise, although that's not necessarily worth it for UK residents. And while we've talked about other countries following the UK's example of leaving the EU, one unexpected result from the referendum showed that the majority of Scotland voted to stay. This is because when Scotland held their own vote to leave the UK back in 2014, many agreed to stay under the assumption that the UK would remain part of the EU. Now, that's no longer the case, so it would be unfathomable for Scotland not to hold a second referendum, and it's likely they'd finally gain their independence. Similarly, UK-controlled Northern Ireland is already discussing unification with the rest of Ireland, nearly a century after their division. So the question is, how did this all happen? Why would the UK vote for something with such negative consequences? Well, in a nutshell, age. 75% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted to stay, compared to less than 40% of those over 65. Some have referred to the results as the older generation voting for a future that the younger generation doesn't want. Some suggest that older voters were swayed by arguments that there would be more money available for their health care and that it would help restrict immigration. Meanwhile, many young voters hope to stay and reap the same benefits as their parents, such as free travel throughout Europe and greater educational and economic opportunity. We spoke with several people living in the United Kingdom to get their take on the situation.
It's a sense of a shock, but also recognising that the country is really divided.
To be brutally honest, I'm a bit heartbroken about it all. It feels like a bit of my kind of national identity has been taken away from me.
I think now that we're out of the EU, it doesn't stop us from continuing to be a very united kingdom.
The most overwhelming consensus I also have felt was a certain amount of betrayal from older generations of having voted this way when they probably won't have to live with the repercussions.
This is really going to be a really choppy couple of years. There's going to be a rough couple of years.
Although the referendum is passed, it's not an immediate process. The vote triggers Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union and could take as long as 2 years to actually break away. Already, UK residents are calling for a second referendum. But the immediate effects are devastating, and there's no question that both the United Kingdom and the European Union will be changed forever. But that may not be the last breakup of the European Union. Italy, France, Holland, and Denmark have also called for referendums in the aftermath of the Brexit vote. So how likely are these other countries to leave, and could this be the end of the European Union as we know it? Find out in this video. In fact, in a 2016 Pew poll of European citizens, nearly half of respondents had an unfavorable view of the 28-member bloc. Thanks for watching Seeker Daily. Don't forget to like and subscribe for new videos every day.